This has been a podcast kind of long in the making. I think we've been trying to do this for 2 months now or 3 months back and forth, and we both had to reschedule a bunch of times. So
Tough, right? Like, talk about family and that type of thing. Actually, I'm supposed to do a podcast this afternoon that last night I had to cancel because I need to meet with one of my kids' teachers. She's not in trouble.
really, yeah.
Like that. It's
Clarify that, right?
yeah, we're 1 week into school. And anyway, she needs some help with like reading and stuff. And so teachers kind of reached, which is great. Like less than a week in, teacher reached out, said, hey, anyway. So yeah, no problem. I'll be there. Let me, read other stuff to get down there. Cause it's one of those things ultimately, that's the shit that matters, right? Mm-hmm. Being there and doing that. And it's easy. It's easy to think of those types of things as the inconvenience, where the truth is like, everything else is inconvenience, right? Mm-hmm. Like these kids, like they're only going to get older. She's only going to be in 5th grade for 8 months, and that's a flash in the pan, man. Because I plan on living 102 is the goal. You got a goal? How long you live, Will? What's your number?
That's a good goal. My thing is, I don't know if I have a number. My thing is, I want to live as long as I can live capably, and
up to you,
and get after it. So it's like, if that's 85, great. If that's 95, great. But once I get to a point where it's like, I have to, I'm just like, I plan on moving until the day that I'm in my deathbed. So, if that ends up being 85, great. As long as I had a great quality of life up to that point.
Check it out. We got this lady that goes to my gym. She's 86. She goes to the CrossFit class 3 times a week. We've been open for 15 years. She's been coming 15 years, right? It's the grandmother of one of my original business partners in the gym. Mm-hmm. And she does not miss, man. And she's 86. And I tell a story a lot, but like 4 years ago or so, 4 or 5 years ago, she broke her ankle. And so you're talking, she's 81 years old, 82, like broken ankle. That's not good. Like that's kind of like that's a slippery slope to the end for a lot of people that age, because then you're not on your feet, you're not moving around, you're sitting a lot, you become inactive. Next thing you know, you start getting fucking blood clots or whatever. And then you're recumbent, you're laying down, and then you get pneumonia. And they're like, oh, 6 months later, they die of pneumonia. We're like, oh yeah, pneumonia, big cause of death at this age. But it's like, no, but the pneumonia was caused because she was laying down so much. She was laying down so much because she started getting some blood clotting or bad circulation because she was sitting so much because she broke her ankle, right? But this lady, Lita, broke her ankle, and then like she just had a cast, and like 8 weeks later, she's like running again, just like if she was 42 and broke her ankle, right? Wow. Because she's still getting after it, lifting weights, running, doing all this stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's not like, running 400 meters in 2 minutes or less or anything like that. But I mean, shit, dude, like squats 100 pounds, deadlifts 150 still. Like she's living her life, man, riding snowmobiles out to her cabin, just doing her thing. And she's a great example of actually, talking about the idea of getting older and staying mobile and that type of thing. Like you said, you want to live as long as you can stay mobile. Well, I mean, that's up to you, right? So there's the worst way to go. Not the worst, but a bad way to go, in my opinion, like how I don't want it to happen, I should say. My grandfather, active when he was younger, all this type of stuff. He gets older, heart disease, diabetes, kind of the standard American issue here, right? And he, has a heart attack. Everything's fine. Recovers from it, whatever. Mm-hmm. Gets infection from some surgery or whatever, and like recovers from that, but it weakens him big time. And so now he's like not as mobile, not as ambulatory, having issues a little bit. And then, next thing you know, kidney issues from, probably from the medications and stuff, from the heart issues and diabetes and whatever. And then he's going to, oh man, what's it called? Are they going like, you have to go and hook up to machines. So it basically works as your kidneys like once a week or twice a week.
Dialysis.
Yep. So he's going to dialysis, and this whole CPAP machine all the time throughout the day. And like all this thing. And, the last couple years of his life, like pretty shitty, you know what I mean? Like he's going, and then he dies. And, that's one way that it happens to people, mm-hmm. right? Then there's the other way, which is you're living a pretty full, pretty relatively normal life. You're going around, you're still moving around, you're still going on little hikes, you're still going to the store, all this stuff. And then boom, you get sick, you die 3 months later. Right. Like, that's what I'm talking about. That's the way you want to go, right? Like, if it's the same age, say you still only lived to whatever, but those, you want it to be a, maybe not by a bus, but you want it to be a, hey, boom, sick, dead, not this dragging on type of a thing, right? So it's like, how long, like, how high can you push your health and wellness, and then how long can you keep it at that level? Like, that's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided 102 sounds good. And anything after that, I'll take it, but that's just money in the bank.
There you go. No, I like it. I think, the quote, movement is medicine, right? Like, as long as you keep moving, you're gonna keep moving. And as soon as you stop, that's when you start dying. And you see that with people who retire early, or, just, have that kind of woe is me attitude, sitting at home and just letting the, big pharma medicate them and Band-Aid fix them and all that. There was a story I heard recently of a gal who I think is up in Maine. I want to say out there on the East Coast, who she's a lobster fisherman, and that's how she makes her living. And she's something like 86 years old. And people are like, what's your secret? She's like, I have to fish every day. I got to stay active doing that. So I just got to do what I got to do.
Yeah. Well, and that's like Lita, that lady I was talking about, is 86, still getting after it. She retired. Like, she was like 80 when she retired or older. Cause she's like, well, what else, man? Like, she liked it. She liked her job. She was a teacher working with kids, and she's, it's like, hey man, like, kind of like doing this, give me something to do. She's got like 37 fucking grandkids or something. So it's like, I'm around kids all the time anyway. Might as well show up to give me somewhere to go every morning,
Yeah, well, it does too. You got if you got 37 grandkids, that's a lot of grandkids to, baseball games and soccer games and, whatever else they get into, school awards, things like that. You're constantly moving.
I mean,
That's awesome. Well, I want you to tell us who Danny Lehr is, because for the OG CrossFitters at our gym, they probably know the brand Caffeine Kilos. They've probably heard of Excel Fitness. And if you're newer to CrossFit, which we have a lot of newer people too, or just newer to the fitness scene, you may not have heard about these brands or the business before. So tell us who you are. Feel free to go back as far as you want. And let's dive into that.
yeah, man. So I'm 38 years old. So I grew up in California here, playing sports. My parents always kept us active. So my dad he's a mountain man, to be out there. So he's taking us backpacking on these like 30-mile, 5-day backpacking trips when I was, like 6 years old, something like that. So kind of doing that growing up a little bit through Yosemite, because where we live, Yosemite is a couple hours away. So just kind of up in the Sierra Nevadas, that type of thing. Also playing sports. Parents had us playing, all these sports, played soccer every year and baseball, and just kind of like keeping us active, exposing us to lots of different stuff like that. I got to high school, started wrestling, kind of became my first real like love of the sport type of thing.
Really?
Yeah, that was great. And something that it turns out that the sports that I'm best at are the ones that are highly technical, right? Like, a lot of time on little, like, whereas if your technique is very good, you have a huge advantage, right? Which is true in a lot of sports, but when you get into things like wrestling and Olympic style weightlifting, just kind of a little different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So highly technical, and that's, unfortunately, I'm good at the things that are really hard and they hurt. And for whatever reason that is, I don't know if I'm just a glutton, or if it's or who knows, maybe I just it's just for whatever reason. Maybe I'm just willing to hurt more. I don't know. But so wrestling, and then spend my weekend snowboarding, and then kind of got into college. I decided I was gonna be a PE teacher because I wanted to be outside, and that type of thing. And I wanted to be done with work at 2:30 so I could coach wrestling. So I did that. Started teaching PE, taught PE for 8 years, coached wrestling for 10 years. And then in the meantime, got hooked up, started a gym, 2008. 2013, Caffeine Kilos started, kind of on accident. We were just going to host a competition, get the best weightlifters around the country to come out and lift. And then it just kind of took off. Started selling the apparel and the coffee online. And so after that, I taught one more full year. And then it was way too much. I was working from, 5 a.m. until time to go to school. And then, and we had a baby that same year. And so then after like kid was in bed, I'd work again until 10 o'clock at night and just kind of doing that every day, which is fine for a while, but not sustainable. Right. So then I just kind of but one more year part-time teaching. And then since then I've been done. And that was been, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago now, 8 years ago or so.
Okay.
Oh, then for the last 8 years or so, it's just been all kind of business with the gym, with Caffeine Kilos. And then in the past 4 or 5 years, 4 years or so, I've been kind of doing the same thing in like a advisory / investor value add type role. So
Interesting.
most of my time with Caffeine Kilos, the gym's been open for a while. I'm still involved there a little bit, not as much day to day because we have a lot of people in place that are taking care of those things. And then I think I own part of 5 other businesses or so, almost all in the fitness space, just on little kind of like, 1%, 2%, 10% type of things. That then I talk to those different the owners of those companies. I talk to 1 or 2 of them, almost never. Like they're squared away doing their thing, and I'm just kind of going along for the ride, learning from them. And then a couple of them I talk to once a week or once every 2 weeks, just to kind of be a sounding board for whatever they got going on. So that's what's going on now.
Man.
I have a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old. I've been married for 18 years. Got married young.
Congrats.
And there, I think that brings us up to date. That's probably the bio in 3 minutes.
I love it. I love it. That there's a lot to unpack there because you married young. Sounds like you had kids fairly young too, correct?
I mean, that's all relative. I mean, we were married for 8 years before we had kids, something like that, right? So, because I have a 10-year-old who's my oldest, and so I was like 28, 29.
Okay, so yeah, not terribly young, but
yeah.
Yeah, that's I'm 32 and have an 11-year-old, so it definitely
that's kids young.
Yeah, we did. My wife was 19, I was 20 when we had our first one. Both kids were oopsies, and huge blessings too. Like I would not change a thing. It definitely set me on I don't know. Yeah, I mean, a better trajectory than where I was headed, forced me to get responsible young and anyways, but it sounds like you've done so much in the last, 18 years even. And, it sounds like you also have a very, either a knack or you're just a glutton for punishment in the, entrepreneur world.
Yeah. That's something I left out is actually, before that is that I started competing in Olympic weightlifting, started in CrossFit, got into weightlifting a little bit. And then that actually was that was a big part of my life for five years or so. That's what all I did, right? Was just go and compete in Olympic weightlifting, train with the California Strength. It's one of the best weightlifting team in the country. So I got on that team at a time when there's still some guys out there. When I started training with the team, they had at that time, they had 2 national champions, a couple guys going to worlds, competing in world championships, American record holders, that type of stuff. So being around those guys definitely had an impact on the way you kind of see things and work ethic and different stuff like that. So
did you train there at the same time John North and Donnie Schenkel were there?
So when I started out there in 2010. And so when I started training out there, John and Donnie both just won national championships. Kevin Cornell was like placing 3rd or so. Spencer Moorman was setting junior American records. That was kind of the whole. Glenn Pendlay was the coach. And anyways, that was an experience. That was lots of lessons in there for sure. And that had a big impact leading into the entrepreneurship, right? Because Caffeine Kilos, we're big in fitness in general, the CrossFit space specifically. Olympic, we're the official coffee of USA Weightlifting. We've been a sponsor of USA Weightlifting since the start, since 2013 or 2014. So that's a big part of what we do. And the reason for that is that experience in weightlifting, right? Like that's really what, again, the company started with trying to host a weightlifting meet, get the best lifters in the country out here. And so I just called up some people I knew and invited them out. Because when you're on a team like Cal Strength and you're competing at nationals, it's like there's only so many people that are qualifying for and competing at national championships for a sport like weightlifting. So kind of get to know everybody. You see everyone a couple times a year. You're all staying in the same hotels. And so it's great for relationships and that type of thing.
Yeah. So how have you balanced all the businesses you have, the competing you've done, and family, right? Because we were talking, earlier that family is incredibly important, and it's not the thing in the way everything else is, right? So,
well, so one thing that I did pretty early on when I quit teaching, I realized, okay, well, now if I'm going to do this business thing full time, I better figure out what the fuck I'm doing, right? That was like a very real thing. I'm like, all right, I guess better figure some stuff out. So I started, reading different books and checking out different things. And so one of the things I did is I hired a business coach, and I hired Craig Ballantyne. I'd read his book previously, or one of his books previously, or at this time, maybe I only had one out. Anyway, read his book. It's called The Perfect Day Formula. And it's about how do you balance all your shit you got going on as an entrepreneur, right? Like, you need to be performing at a high level, and it's hard to do that if you know that you're ignoring other parts of your life and other things going on. And so how do you, grow a business? How do you, maintain, balance with your family, and make sure the main thing stays the main thing, right? And so then I read his book, and then I actually I got introduced to a couple guys. They're like mutual friends. And so then I end up talking to him a few times. We kind of become friends. I end up hiring him. And so some of the stuff he teaches are just huge, right? And actually, he has another book, The Perfect Week Formula, which kind of applies here a little more. So, we just do this real quick. So something that, and I've given this framework to different people before as well. And again, it's in his book, The Perfect Week Formula by Craig Ballantyne. Okay. So how you set it up is you pull up your schedule for the upcoming week. So on Sunday, so you can do this. So first thing you do on Sunday is you make a list, like a to-do list kind of, right? But let's go that way. To make your to-do list, right? Then you take that to-do list and you put them in order of importance. What is the number one important thing that needs to get done this week, right? Or what are the things that I know I don't want to do that I like? What's the thing that's been kind of lingering, right? Or that whatever, right? So you put them in order of importance. And then you put that list off to the side. Then you pull up your calendar for the week, and you have a blank slate, blank calendar. Then the first thing you put in that calendar is family obligations. If you say, I'm going to be home at dinner at 5 o'clock every night, then you put in there from 5 to 6, dinner at home, and you put that in there every day of the week. Then you go through, it's okay, is there anything else going on? Do my kids have any soccer games? Do I need to meet with my kids' teacher? Is there whatever's going now maybe a date night, right? Okay, I need to put in a date night with my wife this night. Okay, boom, got that in there. And then, all right, so I got my family dinners in, I've got the kids' soccer games, I've got the date night with my wife, all those things are in there first. Then you go through and say, okay, where's the where am I going? What else makes me feel good that I just cannot forego, right? Well, I need to work out. Well, how often am I going to work out? Well, maybe I can't work out 2 hours a day for 5 or 6 days a week because I know that I don't have time for that. That's not responsible. But 4 days, if I go to my gym, if I do just a class at the gym 4 days a week, that's only 4 hours a week, plenty of time, no worries. So then you go, okay, what time am I going to go on what days? My wife's a nurse. She works nights, a couple nights a week. So I can't go the day after that. So you just kind of look through there and you just plug in what days and times you're going to go to the gym. You put those in there. And then maybe, if there's something else going on, right? You got to, now once that stuff's in there, then you say, okay, here we go. What time am I waking up? I'm getting up at 5 a.m. every day. Okay, well, I'm going to the 6:30 class at the gym. Actually, from 5 till 5:15 to 6:15, that is going to be the most productive time of the day for me because people are most creative first thing in the morning. Nothing has gotten in the way. Nobody is calling you, texting you. There's nothing that's going to interrupt what's going on. If people do call and text or email, you don't have to respond because they don't even know you're awake. And you could just really get going. So then you look at your list and you say, okay, what are the most important things I need to do? All right, number one on that list, that's going in there Monday first during that first work block. Next thing down the list, Tuesday during that work block. And you just kind of schedule in. And then after that, you say, okay, well, then I'm going to, whatever the office that I'm going into is an hour, 45 minutes away. So the commute, okay. So when I'm in there, when are my meetings? So you plug in your different things, meetings you have going on. And then you just go down that list and plug in, and you don't be a lister, be a scheduler, right? So you take that list, you go from most important to least important, and you just block in those things and schedule them throughout your week. And, if you want to leave some times open, you say, okay, well, I know I need to take some calls at one point. Thursdays when I take phone calls, I'll take those from, 10 to noon, and then again from 2 to 4, whatever. So you kind of leave those blocked off in there, and there you go. And anything on your list that didn't get in there, it either isn't that important, right? Or you need to delegate it, right? That's when you can get into the delegate, eliminate, or technology type of thing, right? So it's like, okay, well, if I don't have time for this, I either need to not do it at all. Maybe it's not that important, or I need to delegate it to somebody who has the time capacity for it. And it's probably, if it's that far down the list, then I'm probably not the one that needs to be doing it, right? Or is there or automate it, right? Delegate, automate, or eliminate. That's kind of where you're at there. Or maybe it's like, it is really important and I'm the only one that can do it, but there's not time this week. Okay, well then we'll see where it lands next week. Maybe next week it makes the cut. Maybe it doesn't, right? And if it's on that list for 2 or 3 weeks in a row and there's not a spot for it, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. So that system, I don't specifically follow that exact system every day, every week now still, because I did for a couple of years, and I have the framework of it is pretty much there. And so now I have a little bit different thing, but doing that for a couple of years kind of helps you establish patterns, helps you establish like when you're working, when you're not. And yeah, it's kind of helps you get those patterns set so that way you're set up for success. And then maybe you can take it day by day, because I already know, and in my calendar is already, from here on out, basically, like I know what time I'm going to be home for dinner, and I am every time. Right. And I know what time I'm getting up. I know what, so, but doing that for a few years, definitely there's a huge benefit.
I think there's a definite importance to having a framework. I was in sales, and for many years, I followed the same schedule, did the same thing, had to, I'd prioritize reading and kind of studying self-growth over training. And that stuck with me up until, I opened up my businesses. And, now it's like, okay, I've tried block schedules. I've tried, putting things on the calendar and sections and stuff like that. And for me, the framework is still there, but I found what's most important for me is having that task list, and then knowing, okay, family's number one. So if there's a game, or there's my wife wants me home for dinner, certain things like that, those get done. At the end of the day, I shut the computer, I move on, no matter if I'm finished or not. And then there's times where she understands, like, okay, I got to prioritize this meeting because this happens once every 3 months, so I think that's really cool. And that's a really good formula for that. In what order do you prioritize life? Like family, training, work. In what order do you typically prioritize that?
I mean, family first. That's the thing, especially with the kids. I'd say goal number 1 is to stay married. Like that's kind of that's
good goal.
I even say that's behind staying alive, right? Like goal number 1 is stay married. Goal number 2 is stay alive. And then and then you get on to the kids, obviously, right? Because that is a time bomb, man. That is a limited thing. They are not going to be around that long. I mean, you look up, and it's like, because they're 6 and 10, like they're going to 1st and 5th grade. Like 5th grade, shit. Like that's like, dude, that's getting, when I used to teach, I taught mostly high school, but I did spend a couple years with like some 4th to 8th graders. And I remember it's like, yeah, man, they're like the older kids at the elementary schools. And so, yeah, man, blink and they're older. So that's one of those things. So I mean, there's that. And then you get into like working out and business and stuff. And like, there's a time, there's seasons of life. Right. So actually, for the last, for a stretch of like 4 or 5 years, from when my second daughter was born until she started kindergarten, I didn't really work out as much as I wanted to, or felt like I should. Like I stayed active, but I legit like went to the gym to work out 2 to 3 days a week.
Really?
And other days I'll do other stuff, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. On the weekend, I'd put on a 50-pound backpack and go for a 30-minute ruck walk type of a thing, right? But it wasn't like I didn't have, but Monday through Friday, I wasn't making it down to the gym to coach classes. It just wasn't, the mornings didn't really work for that. And in the afternoons, I had stuff going on and home before dinner with the family every evening. And that's important. And so, but the thing is too, it's like, you can plan that out. And if you're in pretty good shape and you kind of know what you're doing, that's enough to maintain, right? And if you're eating pretty good and everything, you're fine. You can be in pretty good shape that way. But then when she started kindergarten, it all of a sudden I realized, I was like, oh man, in the mornings, like the mornings went from, it was like a 2-person job getting these girls out of the house or whatever to like not a 2-person job anymore. Like, it's like you're only doing one drop off. Before it's like you're dropping one kid off at this school and you're taking her to preschool or to my in-laws if they're watching her, whatever's going on, right? They're just like all this stuff. So, and then the kids get older. It's like, oh, they can brush their own hair now and they can reach their own clothes out of the closet and like all this stuff. Just like the mornings just blew open. And I was, hey, to my wife, say, Jess, I think I'm gonna start going to like the 6:30 a.m. class a couple days. She's like, yeah, you should. So it's just been the last, year and a half or so that I've been, getting down there. Like I said, I try to do the CrossFit classes 4 times a week. And then and then I started I actually have a hobby for the first time in like 4 years also. Because like I said, seasons of life. There's a time where it's like, you know what? I used to really like golfing, but like I choose not to. I'm not gonna say I don't have time. I'm choosing not to go spend, 4 hours on or 4 or 5 hours out of my weekend at the golf course or in the middle of the week. That's just not, I have other priorities, right? I'm choosing not to spend my time doing that. And so anyway, but yeah, in the last year or so, since they're both in school all day, every day, same school drop off, getting older, get themselves ready. So I've been actually working out as much as I want, doing that type of stuff. So there's times where the business entrepreneur stuff is more important than getting your workout in. And doesn't mean, and you got to know your limits too, right? Like I know if I don't work out, I almost always do something now, right? Like even if it's like a 20-minute thing, whatever. But if I don't have to go do a hard workout today. If I go 2 days without, that's all right. But I know myself, if there's 3 days in a row where I haven't done something challenging, like physically demanding, I start getting weird. Like I'm like irritable. I'm stressed out. It's just not like I need that kind of release. Right. And so that's part of it too, is you got to find, everybody's different. Some people, maybe it's every day. Maybe you have to, like do some sort of high intensity thing every day. And if you know that, then, fit that in, work that in, there's ways to do things that doesn't mean spend 2 hours doing it, but you can walk outside your doorstep and go run 2 miles hard and it's not, and be back in
16 minutes, right?
Yeah. Less than 20 minutes. Right. Like, so, that's something to keep in mind too. And I like little challenges like that. I've done that before too. Like I'm just going to run a mile every day and just kind of see how long it goes. And it's like, hey, get up, go run a mile. And then, next thing you know, it's like, 40 something, 50 something days. And it's so that type, I like doing that type of stuff also.
Yeah. I think knowing your limits, a very good thing to think about. I finally asked my general manager here at the gym, I'm like, I love training almost too much, and I'll train 6 days a week, 2 hours a day. And I finally got to the point where, I know I'm not getting 8 hours of sleep every night. I get, I probably average 7, but on mornings I coach, I get, 6, if I'm lucky. And then on mornings I don't, I let myself now sleep till 6:30. Whereas before, I'd force myself to get up at 5:30, and I'm like, okay, I need more sleep for this, to cognitively function well. If it was all physical, I could get by on less sleep, but to cognitively function well and be creative in business and which is my true competition, right? Like that's what I'm really building. I need to have somebody telling me like when to stop being a bitch and also when to rest, right?
And for a long time, I was getting up at 4:30 and I was doing it 7 days a week, because I had stuff to do, right? Like get up at 4:30, by 5 o'clock, I'm work from 5 to 6:30 or 7. Kids get up at 7, and I did that 7 days a week. And then at one point, I realize I'm like, yeah, well, I also need to sleep, right? I'm not getting enough sleep and that type of thing. And so I get up at 5 now, Monday through Friday without fail. Weekends it's hit or miss. Weekends I kind of don't set an alarm anymore, but I'm never really in bed past 7 at the latest. But that's like, I'm like, man, 7. Talk about sleeping in. This is
Yeah.
wild, dude.
Feels
But
like your day's gone.
yeah, but also it depends. If I'm in bed pretty early on a Friday or Saturday night, whatever, I'll still get up early, right? Just kind of varies. Talk about the whole like goal one staying married. As much as anything, it's nice. Talk about like Sunday mornings, Saturday mornings, whatever. For my wife, for my alarm not to go off, right? That's kind of it's like whenever I get up, then I get up, right? And so there's that type of thing too.
Yeah, I couldn't wake my wife up if I tried, most of the time. So the alarm she'll tell me, she's like, did your alarm go off this morning? I'm like, yeah. She's like, no idea. Now, I want to go back to that. You say number one goal, most important goal, stay married, right? Where does that come from? Because I feel like in today's day and age, most people don't have that foundation in their life of like, I made a commitment here. I
Right.
need to stay married. And I understand things happen. I'm not gonna judge people for that. But I feel like so many times we get married or people get married and then they're like, this isn't working out. I'm just gonna quit it. You know, where does that foundation of stay married, family first come from?
Well, I mean, my parents still married, and they actually got married young. They're still married. My grandparents, same thing. Like both sets of grandparents were married until they got old and one of them died. My brothers got married young. He's still married. It's kind of what we do. That's part of it. The other thing is, especially once you have kids, man, like that's the whole thing. Like that's a major impact, and I'm not suggesting that it's always the right thing to do is to stay married, before the kids because you have kids. Like I think that potentially could cause more damage. But just the being aware, being cognizant, right? Like everything you do, how you treat your spouse. Okay, if you're a male and you have boys, how you treat your spouse is how your boys are going to treat their spouse. If you have little girls, how you treat your spouse is how they are going to accept being treated by their husband, right? And that's important, right? And if so you want to be a good, we want to set a good example. You want them to be, if you want them to have, happy lives, happy marriages, that type of thing, lead by example. And the other thing is, man, you're just happier, man. Like, who wants to live that way? Like, come home to this person that you're mad at, or or is upset with you, or you don't like, or is always on your nerves, or whatever the fuck, right? Like, it sounds terrible. Like, don't you want to live with somebody who you enjoy being around, and you yeah, and like you can help each other out. And when you're struggling with something, you just like tell them, hey, this is like really hard. I'm going through this. And maybe they have some advice for you. Maybe their advice is shit, but at least it's something. And that's usually not the case. Usually the outside eyes, and it's just I think it's just a better way to live, man.
Yeah. Yeah. My
That's
wife went through a real hard time. Oh,
less. Oh yeah, just so much less stress, happier. And that's ultimately you're gonna perform better if you're in a good spot, if you're not stressing out about something going on at home or whatever. And I think a lot of times, look, I don't know, right? Like I'm not in a marriage sport that's not happy or whatever, so I can't like speak to that. But I've seen it a few times where these people are happy and then they're not.
mhm.
So what changed? At one point you loved each other, and now you don't, or you're not. So like, but when I've seen that happen, usually it's kind of one of the people is doing something different or making some sort of little change. Maybe it's even like a relatively positive change in their life, but the other person doesn't understand it. And instead of just like communicating and working through it, then they start, maybe the person's making the change is trying to force it upon their spouse, and maybe their spouse isn't, ready for that or doesn't want anyway, whatever. Right. It's just these things kind of happen, and they happen over time where it's like, all of a sudden they look up and they realize that they're in this terrible spot and it's never going to kind of work out again. But like when you see it from the outside, you're like, oh no, man, this has been past couple of years. It's been a little, like I've seen this happening. Right. And so there's that awareness also where if there's something going on, you're not happy, like you need to talk about it. You need to get to the bottom of it. You need to, and there's an understanding and there's a wanting the other person to be happy.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, right? Like, it's not about you, right? Like, that's ultimately, you'll be happier if they're happy.
Yeah.
And, so finding that common ground, I think that's important.
Yeah. Putting your spouse's needs before your own, I
Yeah.
think,
And
because
also, if you have those needs, you need to communicate them. I think that's a big issue too, right? Is like, it's easy in your own, how many times you argue with someone, they're not even there. Right? Like, all the time, you're driving to work and someone cuts you off and you're just like, oh, this motherfucker, right? And it's like, and then you're sitting there, and or there's someone at work that you don't get along with, and you're like, oh man, I swear, if this, like, oh, if this guy looks at me again, or if he says this again, whatever's whole, and you're like, have this whole argument with them, they're not even there, and you get there and they're like, good morning. And you're like, yeah, fuck you, right? Like, you've been, you've been MFing them the whole way up. They didn't even do anything, right? It's all in your own head, and you get all work. I think that happens a lot in people's households. You know,
Mhm.
woman, and the sink's full of dishes again. And it's like, man, every day when I get home, there's a sink full of dishes, and I'm gonna do them. Oh, no one else is gonna do them. I guess I will. And the whole time you're doing the dishes, you're like angry washing them, and then you don't say anything.
Yeah.
And then next time they do something, you're like, oh yeah, just like this whole thing. It's like, just conversation, man. Like, just have these conversations. If there's something's bothering you, speak up, right? Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. I want to go back to Excel now. So you got out of teaching. Did you go directly into gym ownership or starting a gym? Elaborate on that and tell us how that journey started.
Well, the gym, I was still teaching. So
Okay.
I started doing CrossFit. I start looking around for a local CrossFit gym, CrossFit box, see if there's something around there. Just to kind of like meet somebody, like work out, not just by myself at the Globo gym. There was one in a neighboring town. So I contact the guy. Turns out he's also a PE teacher and just kind of doing this on the side. Like, he was just working out in his garage, and like neighbors started showing up, and he was like, fuck, I need more equipment. I got to start charging people. And so that's kind of how it started. And so I hit him up, and he's like, actually, we work out together. And then we're just talking, and he said, man, like, he really needed help, right? Like, he had a business partner, but the guy wasn't really doing anything at all. Like, it was just like the guy helped front some of the money, but that was it, doing literally nothing. And he had a couple kids, and he's like, I can't just coach all these classes, whatever, I need help. And so then he's like, hey, you want in? Like, they had just formed the business a couple months prior, like 2 or 3 months earlier.
Mhm.
Sounds great. And so my grandfather was an entrepreneur, started and ran businesses. That's all he did. Had some real estate around town also towards the end. Then my parents, my father, my aunt and uncle, they ran the business. My grandfather retired. So I grew up seeing people make a living by running their own business. So it wasn't this like scary, thing that, oh, it'll never work. I'm like, oh no, man, like, sometimes you just make a paycheck by running a business. That's what people do.
Right.
So anyways, then I bought out the other partner of the gym. Again, it was a couple months in to when they'd started. And so we were doing that. And so he was teaching PE, I was teaching PE, and there's a third guy who had a full-time job as well. So the three of us just kind of tag teaming this thing. And then it was just growing from there. So I was still teaching for another 4 or 5 years after that.
Okay. Gotcha. So okay, so you did both for about 5 years. And then you started to, I guess from there, did you hire people in to run it or?
Yeah. So a lot of our, so we started off, we were kind of coaching the classes, but then as the gym grew and we knew more class times, different stuff like that, we weren't available. So we started hiring some coaches. And so then, had some interns and started paying them. And so actually our main coach that was there, he was actually had my original partner, Nick. He ran CrossFit classes at the school, at the high school. And so one of his students, this guy, Buddy, was just loved it. And that was all he wanted to do. He didn't really have like career plans. He's like, yeah, man, I was thought like, could I coach people? And so he started working for us, coaching a lot of our classes. And then as he kind of got older and matured more, I mean, he's only whatever. I mean, I think he's like 34, 30, like he's only 5-6 years younger than me. I started teaching pretty young. And so that was part of this too. So then down the road, my Nick and Terry, the other business partners, they decided it was time for them to kind of move on. And so then anyway, they moved out and then Buddy moved in. And so now he's actually my business partner in the gym. Has since I think 2015, something like that. So
You still coach ever or?
yeah, I coach one class a week.
Nice.
I love it. I actually would like to do 2 or 3. Talk about like schedules at some point. I'll probably coach a few more. It's fun, man. And it's also, you know what else? Like, good at it, right? Like this is my formal education in college was, I got a degree in PE. But in pedagogy specifically, right? Like in PE to be a teacher. And then I got a master's degree in education with the emphasis in cross-cultural communication, which really just means that it was the closest master's degree that on top of my credential. It was like the fastest one to get in education. So there's that. And then from teaching PE for 8 years and coaching 10 years and all this thing, I've been around and coached by just amazing coaches. My high school wrestling coach was just absolutely fantastic. He had coached in colleges as well. And then he was down at the high school. So it was like basically our wrestling coach, the college coach. And so that was really good. And he was really good at what he did. Then through that, and then coaching alongside of him for a while before I took over as the head coach. Then again, weightlifting, coaching, getting coached by Glenn Penley. And then after he had left by the owner there, Dave Spitz. And then through Caffeine Kilos, I kind of had some opportunities where I basically travel around the country just to lift, just for the sole purpose of training for a week under different weightlifting coaches, like the best coaches in the country. So we just went there, hung out for a week, said, treat me like I'm your athlete, and kind of had those experiences. So between the formal education side of thing and then just being exposed to these coaches, this like coaching people and teaching people is probably my best skill. Like I'm really good in front of a group of people. And it's a lot of fun to coach at the gym, man. It's like, get a little taste of that again, even for an hour a week. It's like, oh yeah, like staying in touch. Like I feel good, feel alive.
I coach Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, and in the morning I coach 5:15 and 6:15 class, and it's like I look forward to those days every week.
Yeah, man. It's like get out there, like see some people, you get them going. I never coached my kids' sports because I'm unreliable. Like I travel sometimes for work. Like I cannot tell you that I'm going to be in town every Saturday for 8 weeks. Like I'm probably not. Like I'm going to miss the first game and I'm going to miss the last game of the year. Like I already know that. I'm going to be there during every game I'm in town for, but if I'm gone, I'm gone. And some days I'm actually like, I fly home late on Friday night sometimes so I can be there on Saturday. Or I did a one weightlifting meet as a Masters, the Masters World Cup, and I competed on Sunday. And so Saturday I went to my daughter's soccer game and then drove straight to the airport to go down for that. Right. So like I try to make them, but if it's not possible, it's not possible. But this year, one of my daughter's friends' parents called me, said, hey, I'm coaching the team. Like, be my assistant. That way they'll be on the same team. Sure. And so anyway, first practice, I'm just like hanging out, letting her do her thing. And I just couldn't take it. It was like 15 minutes in. I'm like, hey, do you mind if I do some drills? And then I just went in. Like next thing you know, I'm like sitting there. I'm getting these like 6-year-old girls, man. They're like in fucking lines. We're doing drills on the whistle. Like we're high-fiving. We're like doing peel offs. We're like just clapping on 3, the whole thing. Like I just couldn't, I just saw all black and just like went in and then like shook out of it at the end. And it was so fun. I had like the best time, like getting these 6-year-old girls and these little lines running drills.
That's a blast. I had that happen with my son. He started playing rugby last year. They let him start a year early, and it's touch at 7 years old. He started in first grade, and so he started with that. And so after one of the practices, I was watching some stuff, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna take him over here and work on this stuff with him. So I start working on it with him. One of the dads comes up to me, he goes, "Why aren't you coaching?" And I go, "Well, I thought I wasn't going to be able to be here, but I'm literally bringing him to every practice and sitting here watching him." I'm like, okay, I guess I'll coach. So jumped in. I had a blast, and I'll do it every year that he plays. I'll be on the team coaching. It's a blast.
Oh, it's funny. It's like, the truth is half of the games I end up on the field. Cause like at this age, they have like, they split the teams. So they're like smaller and so you got two fields. So you kind of need two coaches and one's on each field with the kids.
Yeah.
And so that half the time they need somebody, right? One of the assistants isn't there. Something's going on. And they're like, oh, can a parent do it? It's like, oh yeah, man. So I end up kind of half-ass doing it anyway. So, but usually practices, I don't get involved, right? I just kind of like stay back, let them do their thing. But anyway, yeah, we got practice tonight, man. Like I already got, a little bit later today, I gotta get a piece of paper out and got my drills. I'm gonna like make
Love
sure
it.
I got diagrammed, ready to rock.
That's funny. I got a good story for you here. At the end of that rugby season, the head coach, he brought out massive totes of water balloons. And so
Yeah.
the last practice, the kids had to stay in the cup quadrant that they were in, and then the coaches were in the center cup quadrant. And we just started beaming these kids that we had been yelling at, not listening to us all season. I felt so bad though, because I nailed one kid in the face and made him cry.
Yeah.
It's
It's
like, well, it's rugby. I guess, gotta get tough somehow.
that's it. Those are the best sports, man. Like rugby, like hockey, wrestling. It's like there's only a few sports where you can still um like physically dominate the kids
Oh
and
yeah.
not be weird. So that's nice.
Exactly. So what would you say? I mean, you've owned the gym 15 years now. I mean, what would you say is the secret to gym owner success? I feel like what I've seen is a lot of gyms fizzle out after 5, 10 years max. And what I've seen is a lot of people either get burned out or because they're doing all the coaching, right? They have to be there at all hours, or they just don't have good business skills. So, what would you say is been the secret to success in owning the gym that long?
Two things. One, hiring people, right? So having other people coach the classes, you coach 3 days a week for a couple hours, that's great, right? But you cannot be the only person because then you can't go on vacation because you can't get anybody to cover your classes, right? So you need to have enough staff to where you can be gone for a week and it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
So that's really important. Not that doesn't mean that you never coach or whatever, but you need to have enough people kind of in the pipeline that can step in and sub if they're not, whatever. So that's one thing that I think is really important. And the other thing is sales and onboarding process.
Ooh, yeah.
You get a new lead for the gym. How do you get that lead into a community member? And then how do you onboard that person into classes, right? Someone calls, says they're interested. You say just like, oh yeah, come on down, join us for a workout. And then what's that experience like for the whole class? What's that experience like for that person? And, I mean, every gym does different, and that's fine. But, if it's like, oh, and then they say they like it, and you're like, all right, yeah, here, sign up. And they do, then there's whatever, they're just going to class, kind of lost, whatever. So I think that the onboarding is really important, right? And so that's it. Sales process and onboarding is really important.
To dig into that a little bit deeper, because this is the part we're trying to figure out right now. We want to keep growing, and so I can personally relate to this question. But what kind of do you guys use a marketing strategy? Do you do a lot of just outside sales? I guess, what do you have a particular salesperson? What does that look like for you guys?
So we have you say salesperson that does intros. So usually I kind of do most of the little I mean, I know how to work ads, so it's like click a few buttons and we get more leads, I kind of do that, and then once the leads come in, we have a coach that handles this. So they contact the leads, schedule intros, one-on-ones. Person comes in for a one-on-one. Then we have a whole system. Kind of how that hour works is like we have like broken down kind of by the minute as far as scripted and workouts, stuff like that. We do not do a no sweat intro. We do a sweat intro. Like you come in, you do a workout while you're there. And so they come in, they fill out a PAR-Q, physical activity readiness questionnaire, right? And previous injuries, health issues they have. Why are they here, right? Like, why do they want to work out? How motivated are they on a scale of 1 to 10 to make a change? What change do they want to make? You get a rough estimate of body fat percentage with like a little Omron, stuff like that. Just kind of fill out, see where they're at. And then you kind of know what's up them. What if they got a bum knee, you kind of know their history of exercise, how motivated they are to start, just kind of what's going on in their life. And then any health issues, So you kind of do that. And then we take them in, do a little warm up, and then do a little workout and we coach them, right? We spend 20 minutes 20 minutes in the gym, you spend 10 minutes warming up, you spend, it's probably 25. Spend 10 minutes warming up, you spend, 10 minutes teaching a couple skills, and then you spend, 5 to 8, then you do a little 5-minute, 8-minute workout. And so a lot of people have this experience where like, man, no one's like actually taught me shit. No one's coached me in this stuff. And like, yeah, ever, or like, it's not since I was, playing sports in high school that someone actually like taught me skills, coached me skills. Like, so then after the workout, we get them back in the office. How is that? How's it going? How's that compare to other workouts you've done, other gyms you've been members of? Like, what's that like? How's this experience? How is that different than like, what you thought of for a gym membership, what a gym membership was, whatever, right? Oh, in our classes, there's always a coach there. So it's going to lead you through, make sure you know the skills, kind of that type of shit. Then we just kind of talked to them about, a few other things, a little nutrition, all this kind of just telling them stuff free. Just like, all right, here's some little, nutrition tips. Here's a little goal setting thing. And then this is how our memberships work. This is why we work out the way we do. And then this is how our memberships work, which one is best for you.
Oh, wow.
So then, if they sign up, then we say, okay. And also we do an on-ramp process. They actually do 4 more one-on-ones before they get into group classes. So kind of that too. And then we usually just include, if you sign up on an agreement, we'll waive the fee for that on-ramp program. And then those on-ramps, they go, we do 3 more after those next 3. Then they go to 2 weeks of classes. And then after 2 weeks classes, they meet up with the trainer one more time for a final on-ramp. So that way it's like, all right, been to a few regular classes. Like, what was good? What was bad? What'd you struggle with? What do you need to know? And they'll be like, oh man, like one day there was pull-ups and like, I didn't know what I should be doing because I can't do fucking pull-ups. And whatever. It's like, okay, yeah, we'll work on that. Or they're like, oh man, I almost got it. And okay, cool. Let's go work on your skills there. And like, let's see if we can get you to be able to do them. Or if they're just like, oh yeah, everything was fine, just kind of working through it. Nothing, no like big surprises. It's like, all right, cool. Then we'll go into more high skill stuff. So we'll be, all right, let's kind of spend a little time on like snatch and clean and jerk. It's kind of like more complex, high skill, and just kind of take that time, that one-on-one time to work on whatever they need.
Yeah.
That's how our onboarding process works. So then by that time, they've been going for about a month or so. They've done a couple of weeks of classes. They've had, 4 or so one-on-one sessions. So they've made some friends. They're kind of part of the community rolled up in there.
That's really a great way of getting them to drink the Kool-Aid and really buy in right off the bat. You're doing all this for them within their first month of being there. That's incredible. That's actually a very insightful way of bringing them on.
I mean, you're investing in them, right? Like, I mean, you can do it where they pay for their on-ramps. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great, actually. But it's part of the sales process for us. Like, all right, look, if you paid for all these one-on-ones plus the 2 weeks of classes, whatever, it'd be whatever, $450 or whatever. But if you sign up on an agreement, like we'll do that for you.
Yeah.
Right. And so that first month, we don't make any money off the client for the first month or two. But then after that, but on the back end, if they stay a member for 5 years, right? Like your lifetime value of these community members is going to be huge, right? But they got to stick around first. Someone signs up on a 6-month agreement and doesn't show up and just quits after 6 months. Like that's not the goal. We want people in there. We want them to, we're investing in them. We want them to feel that way. We want them to know that we're spending the time with them and kind of investing in them and setting them up for success.
Right. No, that's incredible. So what kind of ads do you guys run? Do you run Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Google ads? Like,
yeah, Facebook and Instagram usually. It's just like so easy to just like pull leads. Quality leads is different. That kind of depends on the offer, what you're advertising. But we'll always have like some just like simple brand awareness ads running for like $5 a day or something like that. And then it's like, all right, if we want to turn up the machine, like right now, okay, back to school. I know like our class are like full right now. So then just people are just coming back after vacations and kids are back in school and kind of all that stuff. And so we know people are thinking about the gym, coming back to the gym. So it's like, all right, let's just turn on the machine real quick. So we just run ads for whatever, like we'll do like a 30 for 30. So like first 30 days for $30 type of a thing. But that's if they sign up on an agreement, right? Says, hey, get 30 days, unlimited class, there's $30. Boom. And then you just run lead capture ads. And so then people fill out their lead info, those come straight to us. And then we start getting a hold of them, trying to get them in for intros.
That's really cool. So switching over to Caffeine Kilos, how did that, I know you guys built that brand from the weightlifting meets, things like that. Elaborate more on how you guys grew that, how you kind of established that brand, and how it became coffee and apparel. And what was it first? Was it coffee or apparel?
But it launched both at the same time right out the gate. Yeah, and how that goes now is like our number one SKU, our number one selling product is coffee of the month, right? Every month's different blend. It's a subscription. It's super fun. So we kind of name them, give them fun names that kind of make you think about the flavor profiles and all that. So that's a lot of fun. So that's our number one SKU, number one product. But overall, we sell more non-coffee than coffee, right? Between either the apparel and stuff like that. So it's really it's a mix. And kind of, right out the gates, we started that way. Started t-shirt and coffee. The most common way that's been grown, I would say, I mean, athletes are a big part of it. Social media has been a big part of it. We caught the wave pretty good. We started in 2013, right? As Instagram was kind of coming up. We had a bunch of friends that were doing well in CrossFit and weightlifting and sending them care packages, and they're posting about it and doing the kind of the influencer marketing before that was a term. And also before there was a bunch of, big companies, they were just dumping money into athletes and stuff like that. So we kind of caught the Instagram wave there early on. Also we had some people help us out. A couple other companies, brands, we'd meet the owners of them, get introduced to them, whatever. And they just kind of talked to us, said, hey, here's some things that worked for us, didn't work for us. Like, here's what we would recommend. Here's things to think about. And that was huge. And so that's why I like to help other people out now too. Right. And it kind of just like pass along the learnings. Yeah. So big part, if I were to say like top couple things, athletes slash influencer, I guess you would say. And then really being a big part of is like owning our own leads, right? So like email and everything, compared to just relying on social media to get your message out. You can't really do that. You have to be able to contact your customers and your prospects yourself. And then joint ventures. Like, we've done a lot of collaborations with other companies, and that is such a huge thing, and it's so important. And it's a great way, right? Like, again, that my business coach I had, Craig Ballantyne, he would kind of say a lot. It's like this, who has my customers, and then how do I get in front of them, right? Mm-hmm. That's not from a who has them, like steal them from them, but it's like where are the synchronicities, right? Like, what other businesses do my customers go to, right? Like the people who, for the gym, the people that are looking for a gym membership, like, okay, well, where else do these people go? Like, what restaurants they eat at, what coffee shops they go to, like what, type of, where do they shop? Same thing with Caffeine Kilos. Like, all right, well, we know we're in the fitness space, CrossFit, weightlifting, powerlifting, anyone who moves a barbell. Well, what else those people do? Do they, do like a meal prep service? Okay, well, we know Trifecta Nutrition. Let's hit them up. We'll do something together with them, right? And we'll kind of then share the leads and customers, right? Like, they kind of access to our customers, we get access to theirs, just like cross promote, FitAid. Oh, they drink FitAid. Okay, cool. Well, let's do some collaborations with FitAid, right? If that's like a big giveaway, if that means that whatever, but we help promote them, they help promote us. And then you have these like symbiotic relationships where we help each other out. And so we have, it's a big part of just knowing people in the community and having friends and doing all that stuff, right? So that's really been a big part of it too, is just working with other companies and doing collaborations and kind of helping each other out.
How large is Caffeine Kilos now?
I don't understand the question.
Oh, revenue wise, if you're open to sharing that. Yeah.
Revenue wise, we've done year by year, just actually not that big. Year by year, a couple million. And so, yeah, I mean, it's fine, but you always want more, right? I'd like to say, like 10 million, 20 million, that'd be great, but we're just do a couple right now. And yeah, so we've been around. That actually just came up the other day. I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, because we got Shopify sent this little award thing, like 100,000 orders. I'm like, man, I feel like I've done more than that. And I was like, oh yeah, because I was like in 2001 is when it like hit and they just sent the award. And so yeah, so that's been a lot of fun. And also our first 3 or 4 years we weren't on Shopify, right? So anyway, so yeah, it's been good. We do 2,000 to 3,000 orders a month. It's kind of where like volume wise where it's at.
How long did it take for you in that business to break even or become profitable? How many years did that take, do you think?
Well, Caffeine Kilos is interesting. It just, I mean, it really took off early. Like it took on, but we didn't take any money out of the business for a long time. For the first year or two, we just plowed everything back in, didn't take any money at all. And then after the first year or so, we kind of sporadically would just take like some profit sharing type things. And then like I think our third year is when we kind of switched to an S corp, started taking salaries out just for like tax purposes, but also just like more. I'm a big advocate of taking a modest but consistent salary from the business, and then quarterly you can do distributions from profit share type stuff.
Cool. Well, this has been a great conversation. I've learned a lot just in this hour we've been sitting down together. I have 2 more questions for you. And the first one is, number 1 book you'd recommend to people just in life, for entrepreneurship, for life in general. Number 1 book you'd recommend?
Mindset. There's this book called Mindset. It's by Carol Dweck, and it should be mandatory assigned reading in like 6th grade, probably. Maybe high school, I guess, freshman year. But it's basically, if you understand and believe, I guess, but really, if you just understand the basic principles from that book, everything in life will be easier and make more sense. You'll have more success in every single thing you do. It's so much like I read it. I mean, I bought it for all the coaches in my gym. Anyway, it's one of those things where I'm like, man, I got nieces that are like in high school. Like, I should just do it. Like, buy it for them and be like, hey, read this in the next month, and then go to lunch with me, and I'll give you $100. like something like that. Like, I don't know what would incentivize them to do it. Like, or it's like, or maybe just read this next month and you don't have to go to lunch with me. Maybe that'd be better. I don't know. But it just, it's fantastic. It's really good. It's, I think that if you have children, you definitely need to read it. There's some like crucial, parenting, stuff in there. Yeah, it's really good.
Awesome. My last question for you here is what legacy do you want to leave?
I just want people to feel like I treated them the right way.
That's good.
Really it.
Simple.
That's it. Simple, man. Oh yeah, Danny. Oh yeah, he was nice.
He was a nice guy. Yeah.
But yeah, like I think it's important to treat people the right way and for them to know it and feel that way. And that's a big deal, man.
Man, love it, man. Well, where can people find out more about you, more about your businesses,
Yeah. So go to DannyLehr.com. Lehr is how you spell Lehr. So that kind of has links to everything. You get to Caffeine Kilos from there. You can learn about the gym from there, some other stuff I got going on. And then if on Instagram, Danny_Lehr, again, Lehr. That'll get you there.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on, man. It's been a great conversation. Look forward to doing another one, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, we should just start scheduling it now, because by the time we both cancel 3 or 4 times, it'll be 6 months. We all set.
Exactly. We'll put it on the calendar for next year.
Next time we'll do it tarps off too. We'll let them know.
Love it. I'm in.